bring in the legendary Tom Williams, South Jersey Hall of Famer. How's it going, Tom?
Good. This is probably the best Temple team since Brian Brumell graduated.
Yeah. Old Jim Cooper, a former Temple guy, too, in the area from Northfield.
Absolutely. In fact, interesting you mentioned that because Mike Giuliano yesterday kicked his 14th career field goal, and he was tied with Jim Cooper, the father.
Nice.
Third in Cape Atlantic League history, so he's third by himself now.
Nice. Congrats to Mike Giuliano. He's a big star now. He was in the Courier Post, I think, Courier Post for a Q&A. So I told him to remember who made him famous with last year's feature story in Glory Days.
They've had some string of kickers.
Yeah.
In mainland.
Tom, talk a little bit about Ocean City real quick. They're kind of turned things around. 2 out of the last 3 they've won. Big win over Atlantic City last night. This is a team that, they started out with, I think, 5 straight losses, whatever. And they've always been playing hard and really fighting through that tough part of their schedule. And, their perseverance is kind of paying off right now.
Yeah. They played teams tough. I mean, they lost Vineland in overtime. Absegami, Vinnie Nelson made 2 big plays that won that game by 5 or 6 points. They certainly could have beaten Millville. It looked like they had a touchdown that might have given them a chance to win in the final seconds last week, and it was called back by an offensive pass interference. I mean, obviously they were overwhelmed by St. Augustine, who ran those five receivers and Tabora by himself in the backfield, and they just methodically, like they're doing with just about everybody, handled them. Excuse me. And Mainland had that big night by Bishop that tied the Cape Atlantic League record, but they've been in the games except for the St. Augustine game, and they made the play in the fourth quarter that they had to make, a nice drive in the final 3 minutes. I think Atlantic City turned the ball over. Don't have the official stats done yet, but I think they turned it over 9 times in the game, and it's actually kind of remarkable when you turn a ball over 9 times that you only lose by 1 touchdown. But they've been hanging in there, and they probably, based on their performance, should have a better record. But you take what comes, and you're right. They won 2 out of the last 3, and if they find a way to beat St. Joe's in 2 weeks, they're off next week. They could slip into the playoffs.
Yeah, really nice job by Kevin Smith down there, keeping that team together and keeping them fighting hard. I guess next year they should get a little bit more of a favorable schedule, right? I mean, they're kind of one of the smaller teams in the Cape Atlantic American Conference, and they've been playing some brutal schedules the last couple of years. Talk about that a little bit next year. Do you know what's going to shake out in terms of the scheduling, how they're going to go about finding games for these teams that are, a little more on a level playing field, like a team like Lower Cape May? They shouldn't be playing a team like Egg Harbor Township that has 85 kids on the roster.
That's right. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen because that's in the control of the West Jersey Football League now. But I would anticipate you might see St. Augustine be the one school that might move into a division with the non-Cape Atlantic League schools because they're bigger and they're getting better and probably will be good for a while now based on the talent that they currently have. The rest of the teams could be grouped together. You might see a team like Cumberland, teams like Hamilton and Wildwood come back into the mix somehow because of the geography, and teams like Kelsey and so forth that are within the areas, too, or the general areas of some Cape Atlantic League teams. But, yeah, hopefully that it'll be divided up with the bigger schools, the Atlantic Cities and Vinelands and Egg Harbor Townships and so forth in a division. Then maybe with a couple of new teams or maybe with other Cape Atlantic League teams. But that's the one thing. We don't know exactly how they're going to do it. They have 11 divisions now of 6 teams, and there's a lot of different ways that they can go. And I understand the Colonial Conference has actually had some preliminary conversations with the West Jersey Football League, too. So if anything materializes there, every single football team in South Jersey will be in the same league.
Yeah, I know it's kind of they're following suit in North Jersey and trying to make one of these big super conferences. Some people are against that. They like the traditional Cape Atlantic League. I think it's going to be good for everybody involved just because, a team like Pleasantville will get some more competitive games. Teams like, Lower Wildwood is surrounded by all these Cape Atlantic League teams, and they got to drive, an hour and a half to go play Clayton and Pittman and all these type of schools. So I think it's going to work out good. We're going to have a lot more competitive games throughout the season.
We could, and they do indicate that they'll do everything they can to save rivalries like Ocean City, Pleasantville, Atlantic City, Holy Spirit, maybe even bring back St. Joe, Hamilton, and that would be nice because I think the rivalries are important because in the long run, those are the things that these student athletes remember. Only a small percentage of them are going to go on and play at the next level, so they're really just building memories for the reunions to come down the road.
Yeah, you mentioned Hamilton and St. Joe's. I think it would be really cool if they could schedule those teams to play sort of in late October when there's some playoff implications on the line. That Thanksgiving rivalry is cool, but a lot of times one of those teams is in a state championship game, and it ends up being, they don't want to get players hurt, so it's very, lopsided, one-sided, one way or the other. How cool would that be to see some of these teams that traditionally play on Thanksgiving and where one team's always in a state championship game to get them to play maybe in October and really have an exciting game for teams like Hamilton and St. Joe?
Well, I think there's other ways you can do that. Like, for instance, there's some great rivalries that aren't Thanksgiving games. Obviously Oak Crest and Cedar Creek because of the being in the same district. Ocean City and Mainland, Holy Spirit and Mainland. Games like that I've always thought would be great openers. They're really great. Create excitement immediately at the start of the football season. Bridgeton Cumberland could be another one. But I like the Thanksgiving games on Thanksgiving. I understand what you're saying, that some of them are really significant points wise, and it would be better to have them before the cutoff for that purpose. But there's something to be said for keeping those rivalries on Thanksgiving, and of course that's been one of the points that's kind of held back that state championship to some degree in the public schools, because they will always try to set it up so the schools that want to can preserve those Thanksgiving games. But I think you can do that with some of the other games, and I agree with you. It's great to have those types of matchups in the early part of the season.
Yeah, still a lot to figure out with next year's schedule. We're up against the end of the show here, Tom. I appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch up with you throughout the rest of the season. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Oh, okay, Dave.
All right, that was Tom Williams finishing up our show here. Legendary writer, broadcaster in the area. So great to get his thoughts